What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the He Heard podcast. As you can see, my guy Andrew got the Amon-Ra St. Brown jersey
Finally came in.
Only real ones know. Only real ones know. First
The
ever
day ones.
episode.
The day ones.
First ever episode of Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown. Only the real ones know. We're back, man. We're excited. Today is going to be the first time that we do the kind of format that I hinted at during the Passion video?
I think so.
So this is going to be the first time we do that format. Today, the topic we're going to be touching on is addiction. And, you'll hear more about it later. But we've got a special guest today. Andrew's never met him. This is my guy, my Georgia College guy. And we got Blake, baby. What's up, Blake?
What's going on, y'all? Hey, my name's Blake Barker. I'm a sophomore at Georgia College, nursing major. I'm involved with Wesley, Georgia College. And, I'm super happy to be here, man.
Yeah, man. This is my guy, Blake, bro. Man, Blake's got a crazy story. We'll get into that in a second, but man, excited to be back.
Yep.
Nice little break Sunday. Always got a break Sunday
For sure.
But yeah, man, we're ready to get right into it. So, Blake, I guess first question. We always talk about the testimonies on here. We're gonna try and cut it down. So, can you give us like a little pop shot, little 1-minute testimony, real quick for us?
Yeah, bro, definitely, man. So I grew up in a Christian household, man. My mom and dad, they both loved Jesus, always had me in church. But honestly, I got saved at around third grade, and I truly believe that I was saved. I can remember accepting Jesus and understanding it all and, getting baptized after, which baptism doesn't save you. But then also just like I remember seeing fruit too. I'd go to church, I'd pay attention. But then slowly as I got to middle school and high school, it kind of fell off. I just wasn't as interested in it, didn't really care as much. In church, I'd fall asleep, and then really got worse and worse as I got into high school, gotten around more and more sin, man, and my life just got darker, got involved with, a bunch of lust, eventually started smoking weed real bad, listening to a bunch of explicit music, and my mouth was horrible. I was a liar, a lot of different things. And then right before coming to college, summer after senior year, I just had an encounter with God where it was like I realized I'm saved, bro, but all my friends that I'm smoking weed with and hanging out with all the time are not saved. And if we all died right now in a car crash or whatever, that I would shoot up to heaven because of what Jesus did for me. But my friends, sadly, they would not because they don't know Jesus. And so that sparked an interest in me to, okay, I need to read the Bible. I didn't quit everything and become a goody two shoes, but I started reading the Bible. And through that, I've been becoming more and more sanctified. I'm over a year sober, smoking weed. God's just been doing just crazy things in my life, man. This year already, we're only a month in, but I've already seen God move so many ways. Last year was best year of my life. So, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's so good. You talk about the weed, you talk about all that stuff, but if we see those flags behind you, what's each flag for? You see Brazil, and we got Israel, and we got USA. So what's the Israel one for? Because I know it, but let's let the people know, man.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm glad that you asked that, bro. So, I actually got blessed with the opportunity to go to Israel last summer, months before the crazy war that started, man. We were actually learning about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I became way more knowledgeable on it. Still don't know everything, but it was just a crazy trip. Got to see all the sights of Jesus, learn about the Jewish culture and the just it's everybody in Israel, man, and just got to learn about like all my roots in Judaism as well. Not just in Christianity because we came from the Israelites, and man, it's so powerful to learn that. I truly believe that the Bible talks about that the Jewish people will be saved one day, and will return to believing in Jesus, and so I think it's all part of the story, and it's just a full circle. So that's really cool. And then American flag. Of course, I gotta have the United States and represent the United States flag. My bad, not American flag, but yeah. So I gotta have that one. And then Brazil. So my buddy, his name is Talis. Shout out Talis, man. I love that guy so much. He's just an amazing person. I met him at Passion last year, and we've just become best friends. He lives in Massachusetts. He's from Brazil. He's got a crazy testimony. Shouldn't even be alive right now. His mother tried to abort him, I think, 19 times at the age of 15, and he did not die, and he's still alive. And she named him Talis Winner because he won life and he was completely healthy. And he's on fire for God. He goes to Cape Cod Community College in Massachusetts, and he through God has started the first ever Jesus Club on his campus, and then he's also student body president this semester and last semester. He actually won it because of one vote. It came down to one vote. The bunch of people didn't want him to win it, and he ended up winning it. And he's been giving the glory to God, man. That guy, he pushes me every day.
That guy sounds like a dog for sure.
What a dog! That's insane. Yeah. Golly, talk about Jeez, what a dog.
And a name too.
Big shout out, Talus Winner, bro. Let's go, Talus Winner. All right, so man, I guess let's just hop straight into it. So I guess the first thing that we need to kind of start out when we talk about addiction is like, what is the definition of addiction? Like straight from a textbook or straight from like with a biblical perspective, like what is the definition of addiction?
Yeah, well, so I actually looked that up right before this, and I think that the definition of addiction is like being dependent on something and feeling like you have to go back to it and you need it to survive almost, you know? And I think from a biblical point, I would say that we are, in a sense, meant to be addicted to God. You know what I mean? Like, in a sense, we are supposed to depend on him and come to him for everything. But I think that if we aren't finding that in God, we're going to find that in something else. And so that's where addictions come from, these powerful objects and powerful forces such as like alcohol, gambling, you name it, lust. All these things are so powerful. So whenever we end up dabbling in them and looking for dependency on them, we become addicted, and we need it for everything.
Yeah, I think when I looked it up, it said the exact same thing, but it even it went as far as say like something that is like self-depriving. So it's like it's bad to yourself and you're dependent on it, but it's like making you worse. So like exactly like what you said. So like talking about that biblical perspective, we obviously know addiction's bad. Like there's nobody in this world that can look at you in your face and tell you that addiction's good.
Even non-Christians wouldn't say that.
Exactly. Like nobody is happy to be addicted to crack. Nobody's happy to be addicted to all these things. Yeah. But like what is, let's say an addict came up to me today and was like, yo bro, like I know addiction's bad, but like I can't get away from it. Like can you give me some biblical verses that talk about addiction? Like why is it bad? Like I know it's bad, but help me out here. Like, I need a biblical reason for this. Like, do you have any verses in specific to talk about that?
I would say just honestly, the Bible as a whole, man. So, you know, the Bible is a complete, I just want to say first and foremost, though, that I've only been following the Lord for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, like faithfully, you know, dropped everything for him. So my knowledge and wisdom is limited, but I'm going to do my best, you know. I would say, though, if we look at the way that the Bible, the whole story of the Bible is pointing at it's pointing at, you know, Jesus seeking to be with us, God seeking to be with his people. And I think that we like to test the boundaries. We like to test the waters and try the things that are bad for us. We see it from the beginning of life. You know, nobody has to ever teach you how to lie. You know, your parents don't tell you, hey, when you get into a sticky situation, tell a lie to get out of it. We just inherently know how to do that because we are born with sin, you know? And so I think that we can see by the bad fruits that sin produced that addiction isn't good, you know? So it's like, I don't want to be born because it brings pride in my life and it makes it to where I can't have a relationship with a woman or a male at the same time. And so it's like, I don't want to be addicted to alcohol because I'm a horrible person when I'm drunk. You know, I get angry with people. I say things that I shouldn't say, you know, all these different things. So I think that when we look at the fruits that it produces, and that's why, like you said, Andrew, that everybody knows that addiction's not good, whether or not you believe in Jesus, believe in God at all, you know, so.
Yeah. I think a couple, like, I mean, that's exactly right. But I think a couple that in specific that I know that I've just kind of had in my arsenal waiting for a day for somebody to come and ask me about it. Because, I mean, you know, obviously I think everybody knows people that are addicted to a lot of things, whether it be porn, whether it be gambling, nicotine, all these things. Like I think everybody knows at least one person. So 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. So like right here, it's saying like God's going to tempt you, but if you are addicted, he's faithful and he's not going to tempt you beyond what you can bear. So, like, he's going to give you a way out. Like, you're going to have a way to get out of that addiction. And then also in 1 Corinthians 6:12, it says, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. So I will not be mastered by anything. That's like pretty much exactly what we're talking about with addictions. Like, that thing masters your life. Like, it becomes what you are dependent on. It becomes like what you're like almost is lorded over you. Like, you can't do anything without that thing. And it also says, like the definition that you gave and that I added on, like stuff that's not beneficial. Like, you become dependent on something that's not beneficial to you. So right here it says, I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. So, like, you can go smoke weed, you can go do meth, you can go do all these things, but it's not going to be beneficial for you. So don't be mastered by it. So, I mean, that's that, you know what I mean?
And I would even say, man, like that, you know, it becomes, the addiction becomes the solution and the problem, you know? So it, at first, like, if anybody used to ask me, why do you smoke weed? I'd say, man, I mean, number one, I just like how it feels. And I also have anxiety. It cools down my anxiety, helps me just relax. But then it got to the point where I started realizing after I was delivered from it, I realized, man, it was really weed that was causing the anxiety. You know, the fact that I was smoking all the time whenever I wasn't high, I started to not even know how to live my life. You know, I didn't even know how to make friends whenever I came to college. I've never in my life struggled with fitting into friend groups and stuff like that. It was just, that's just something that came natural to me, you know. But whenever I started smoking weed, it became no longer what friends am I going to hang out with? What am I going to do today? It was, who am I smoking with and where am I going to go to smoke, you know? And so I think that truly does become the master of our lives, like you said, you know? And so it's about running away from that and submitting to God and giving it all up to him, and also denying yourself, because it's not easy to do that. We want to do those things. And then also coming into community, because we can't do it by ourselves, you know. Our bodies, we want to do that. It becomes our solution to the problem, you know. And that's why people that are in addictions, we just get into that cycle over and over again, where it's like, man, I'm sad. What do I know? I know that if I go smoke weed, I'll be okay for 3 hours, you know, or 2 hours, or however long, you know. And then next thing you know, it's worse the next time. Well, what do I do? That's what I know, you know. So you go back to what you know, I guess, and it is your master, like you said. I completely agree.
Yeah, and like, how did you beat that? How did you stop seeking weed and other things as your addiction and as the thing that was most important in your life? How did you break that cycle and turn to God?
Yeah. So the first time that I realized that it was bad was, and it's almost like something you should know that it's bad, right? But it doesn't say clear cut in the Bible, don't smoke weed, you know. But it does say verses that point to that, like your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, you know. So you should be stewarding your body well, you know. And obviously, weed hurts your lungs, hurts your mind. We know that it does damage to your mind. But I'll never forget, I would talk to my grandma a lot, and one day I was talking to her about a lot of biblical stuff, because this was at the point where I'm seeking the Lord a little bit and trying to get closer to him, but I'm still smoking weed. And I told her, I was like, honestly, I don't smoke weed every day, but if there's weed in front of me, I'm going to smoke it. And she told me, she said, well, Blake, I have to tell you that that is a sin, and I still love you, and you're not condemned from it, and you're still going to heaven because of what Jesus did, but that's bringing you farther away from God. And so we know that sin is, the wages of sin is death, and that God is pure. He can't be near death. And so that he's not going to be able to be as close to you as you are whenever you're smoking weed, as you are whenever you're not smoking weed, you know, or doing in any sin. And so she told me, she said, Blake, you just need to pray that desire will be gone. And I'll never forget, I was coming back to Georgia College, and I said a little half-hearted prayer, like, you know, God, I still want to smoke weed, but could you please just take this desire away from me? Like, I still like it, but could you take this desire away from me? And then it wasn't a clear-cut thing. It wasn't right there. But eventually, I started going a week without smoking weed. And I would see these upperclassmen. I was involved with Wesley and our freshman ministry called Freshly. And I'd see these upperclassmen that weren't doing that. They weren't partying. They were having a happy life, living it with God and giving everything to him. And so I said, man, I want that. And I would go a whole week without doing it. And then I would go home for the weekend with my friends from back home, the crowd that I was in from high school, and I'd start smoking weed again. And then I'd come back the next week and I'd have a great week with God. And then I'd have a weekend with myself and with the devil, of smoking weed. And then one day, I'll never forget, I was high. I'd gone a whole week without smoking weed. I'd gone a whole week filled with the Holy Spirit, honestly, just putting my everything in with God, reading the Bible every day, going to services, all of that. And I smoked weed on a Friday and I was high. And I believe God used the high to make me think about the evilness in the world. Started seeing a bunch of different stuff, I it's a lot of crazy things. It's really deep and won't get too into details, but I basically just started thinking about the evilness that's going on in the world. And I got scared for my kids. It's like, what? Why am I even thinking that far ahead? But that's what I was thinking in the moment. And I thought about my kids and I was like, man, I know that I'm going to heaven. But how do I know that they're going to go to heaven? And then it hit me like, oh, that's easy. I just got to get a Christian wife, right? Give me a Christian wife and we're both going to be telling them about Jesus and it'll all be fine. And then it hit me, well, Blake, how are you going to get a Christian wife if you're still smoking weed? And it was just like a mic drop. And I started crying and I couldn't stop crying. And I was like, what? It was like God was telling, it's like it was the elephant in the room, but I was blinded. I had scales on my eyes, honestly. And in that moment, it was like God was telling me, like, you got to stop smoking weed. And I'm sitting there with tears down my face. And I looked to two of my friends, one of them that's high, that believes in God, one of them that at the time was sober, but doesn't even believe in God. And I looked at both of them and I said, man, if God is real, like if he is real, then he's telling me to stop smoking weed. I was like, should I do it? And this is why, even though in the moment, we were influencing each other badly, it's good to make sure you're around good company, people that want your best interest in their own hearts. They want what's best for you. Because even though we were in sin in that moment, they still love me. And they knew that, if God, they had enough common sense to say, if God is telling you to stop smoking weed, bro, you got to stop smoking weed. So I asked them, I said, what do I do? Like, should I stop? Like, that's how much it had a hold on me. And, you can't get necessarily addicted to weed, like the chemical compounds, but you can have a dependency on it. And I definitely had a dependency on it. And so I asked them and they both looked at me and they said, yeah, you need to quit then if that's what God is telling you. And so I said, okay, I'm done. And it was like, whenever I said I was done, it's like God took the desire away from me. I was high for the rest of the night. But it was almost like I was like sober and high at the same time. I can't explain it. I feel like now looking back, I know that the Holy Spirit was just moving on me in that night, and then that's what I was feeling. And for the next 3 days, I felt like almost still like my mind was still messed up. And that was God telling me, like, look, you thought for the whole week you were sober after smoking on the weekends, but look at what this stuff was doing to your brain. You're still not straight. And it took a whole week of just like, after 3 days of that experience, I finally started getting a little bit better and a little bit better. And I after the week, I felt completely fine, back to normal. But then you still see side effects. Like, I'd smoked for a long time, so my memory wasn't the best. And praise God, after more and more time, months at a time, it would get better and better and better. But it's just crazy how he'll tell you the truth and you get the choice if you're going to do it. And praise God that my friends were right there, man. And but after that, dude, I had no desire at all. And it was crazy. Like, I'll never forget, a month later, I was sitting there and I had a bad day. Something had gone wrong. And I was in my room and I was like, man, I thought about smoking weed for the first time in like 2 or 3 months since that experience. And whenever I did, I got sick to my stomach. And that's how I know that I was cured in that moment. And, God, he changed my desires.
Yeah, so I mean, the three things that I think, like, from hearing that story, I've heard a little bit of it before, just talking to you, but like the three biggest things were community, prayer, and I would say probably the Bible in there that just kind of got you out of that pit. So like the three biggest things, if you are struggling with addiction, bro, just like pray, talk to God. Like, God is not going to leave you in that pit. Like, he's always going to provide a way out. Like we just talked about in 1 Corinthians 10:13, like he's always going to give you a way out. There's nothing that he's sending your way that you can't get out of and that he can't get you out of.
And not even like addiction, just like little things. God will always have a way out.
Which kind of leads me to my next point. Like, can all sin lead to addiction? I don't like if you want to answer that, Andrew can answer that. Like I just that's a question that I saw popped up when I looked up like popular questions for addiction, because I was kind of struggling to get some questions down here, and this one popped up and I was like, dang, like I don't even know if I can answer that. So if you want that, Andrew wants that.
But you go first.
Do you want to go then? Okay.
You go first.
You go first, and I'll try to like formulate my answer in my head. Yeah, that is a tough one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I asked my pastor about that earlier, and something he was talking about was that just as humans, you know, y'all probably heard that we're designed to worship, right? And so we're designed to go deep. You know, we're created by a triune God, a God who is 3 in 1. You know, has lived since the beginning of eternity, forever, together with himself in community. So we're made for community. We're made to go deep into community, and we're made for a deep purposes. So we're made for depth. And so no matter what we get into, we are just naturally going to get into it deep. Like we're going to go further in, you know, and get deep into it. So it's if your thing is video games, that's what you love to do. You're going to go deep into video games. If your thing is to watch TV, you're going to go deep into that, right? So whatever it is, and those things might not be inherently bad, but whenever they become our everything, our thing that we're going deep into, we're not going to have the same fruits that we would whenever we go deep with God. So I would say that honestly, anything can go deep. You could go deep with anything. And the only thing that can quench your thirst is going to be with God, you know? And so it's just like with the woman at the well, that what does Jesus say? He says, if you knew who I was, you'd be asking me for water, and I would give you living water that would satisfy you forever. And she knew what he was talking about whenever he said this. And because that was a term that was used back in ancient Hebrew times. And so I believe that if we're not finding purpose in God, we're going to find it in something. For me, I thought weed was the way to go, and also video games and also pornography and things like that. Like that was where I thought the way was. That's what I wanted to go deep with, because that's what was giving me fulfillment. But every day I'd wake up the next morning and I had to do it again, because I wasn't fulfilled. You know, whenever things stopped, I wasn't fulfilled. And but the thing that I found with God is every time he just fills me up and I'm complete, and I'm not, it's not like I have to go do it again because right now I'm feeling bad. It's like I can live my whole life in accordance to his will, my whole life with him, and he holds my hand the whole way. It's really beautiful. And I can't imagine, it breaks my heart to think about the fact that we can get so addicted to something that every day, and that can be anything, every day, that's our God. That's what we're seeking fulfillment after. The next morning we wake up empty, and we have to seek that again up until the point of death, you know, and then it's like, whoa, you're going to have the most sobering experience ever whenever you realize that hell is a place absence of God. And, you know, we thought it was bad here, you know, we thought it was bad waking up sober, but really imagine there's no light at all. So I would say that you can go deep with anything, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and Blake is exactly right, but like the way I sort of think about it is like idols. Like addiction is an idol, and you don't even have to think about it in your head like that what you have as an idol right now you're addicted to, but either way it's a sin. Like anything could be an idol. It doesn't have to be something like porn, like weed, like alcohol. It could be just like anything that takes your full focus away from God is an idol. And in that sense, it's bad. Like that's one of the 10 Commandments. Like don't put anything above God. And what you're doing, if you do something and it's an idol and that becomes, it takes more focus than God, it's bad. You don't have to be addicted to it. You don't have to do it every day, but it's a sin. So you got to cut that out. And it's just anything that can take your focus away from God, and anything that you look to instead of God in any sort of form, that's an idol. And you might not do it every day, like I said, but you got to cut it out, because eventually it can turn into an addiction, and then it will be a sin, and then you get into a cycle. And like Blake said, you're doing it every day. You're waking up looking for it. And then you're just screwed like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Blake's saying, like we're made to worship. Like, and that doesn't mean that worship will always point towards God. Like there's a reason why there are Christians and not Christians, because we're all made to worship, and you can pick and choose what you want to worship. So if that worship starts leading towards that sin, like you were just saying, like that can lead to addiction. any sin, like again, doesn't have to be pornography. These things that we commonly link with addiction, those aren't the only things you can be addicted to. Like, I could be addicted to looking at Blake's face right now, and I wouldn't be able to take my eyes off his face. But like, that doesn't, that's not one of those things. Like, you can be addicted to anything, and as soon, like you were saying, as soon as it takes first priority over God, you gotta get away. Like, you gotta, you just gotta, you realize that as soon as you can and get away from it as soon as you can.
Yeah, and before we get to the next question, like that's something we were talking about at my church sermon on Sunday was Revelation 5. Like we're going through Revelation right now as a church, and part of that part is like John's vision. When it switches from Jesus's message to the churches to John's vision, they all of the animals in the kingdom are worshiping God. They fall down on their face, and Pastor Bray said, like, worship is anything that you put worth in. So we commonly think of worship as like when you go to church and they start singing songs and that's worship, but worship is anything that you put worth in. So you can worship anything in your life that takes away from God. That's what you worship, and that's what you put your worth in. Therefore an idol, therefore you can become addicted and it's sin.
Yeah.
I think something that I've been trying to implicate into my life more recently is practicing the presence of God. And so what that looks like is like imagine you're in a room. I don't remember who said this, but imagine if you're in a room by yourself, like waiting for class to start. You're there 15 minutes early, and somebody comes in behind, and you hear them, and they just sit down. You don't say anything to them or whatever. You're going to like feel their presence. You're going to realize that there's another presence in the room. You might act differently. You might not pick your nose or something like that. You know what I mean? Because the person's in the back. Don't want them to see you. Something like that. And so it's just like your attitude, the way that you live is going to be different. And so with it, when it comes to practicing the presence of God, it's like I'm doing the dishes, but I know that God is right here with me, beside me. I'm going to do the dishes with a better heart. I'm going to do it out of love, not because I have to, because my roommates didn't clean up the dishes, because I love God. That's why I'm going to do the dishes. And so I would say if there's something that you're doing and you can't do it while thinking about God, if you can't bring God's presence in that, because what does it say in the Bible? It says, in everything that you do, whether you eat or you drink, do it all for the glory of God. And so if you can't do it for the glory of God, I would say that it's a sin and that you need to cut it out. And that doesn't mean you're going to hell for doing that, because, Jesus' grace is much worse or much greater than anything that we can do, And so, yeah, I'd say if you can't bring God's presence into it and acknowledge that he's there, then we should cut it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you reading the book by Brother Lawrence right now?
You're not?
No, but I've heard about that book.
It's crazy you say that, because like so Brother Lawrence, like in the book, he found, or like the example he used is like he's washing dishes and he's trying to like, he's thinking about God the whole time. It's crazy you bring that up. You haven't even read the book, and that's like the exact title. But yeah, we got 7 minutes left on the Zoom meeting before it closes on us. So just last question, I guess, see if we can get some more off, but I hate to try and cut us off just because Zoom is trash. But so do you have any stories? Like, what's the craziest stories of addictions? I know when I was talking to you earlier, you told me about your grandma, you got family and stuff like that. Like, what are some stories of people who are freed, and like what were their methods of getting free? Because I mean, obviously you talked about yours, but like, did they have anything different that got them out of that pit? Just to like, if your method doesn't work for somebody, then maybe these people will. Just trying to teach people and give them any resource they can to get out of that pit.
Yeah. So the day that I quit smoking, the next day after I quit smoking, I was doing some work at the church for community service hours for my class or whatever, and I got to meet a amazing, beautiful lady named Miss Rhonda that is at my church, Southside Warner Robins, back in my hometown. And so she told me her testimony, because I told her I'd quit smoking weed. I don't remember how it got brought up, but I told her that, and she said, "Don't ever do it again." But then she told me her testimony, and you wouldn't know it, but she used to be addicted to meth, and she was just going through that, and it brought a lot of darkness into her life. And I'm not sure the exact content or context, but I know eventually she got into a house of people that were trying to become clean, right? And so she was going clean. She was doing good and doing good. and that the house would try to push Jesus on everyone. And they would have Bible studies every day, and they would just be trying to push these people closer to the Lord. She told me crazy things would happen. She can remember literally people getting like coming in there with like satanic things on their knuckles and like tattoos and stuff like that, and then like casting demons out of them and just crazy stuff of other people that were like strung out and addicted. And she said that she was doing good, and she was becoming sober, and she was trying to get closer to God, but she just couldn't believe. It wasn't as easy as it is to just say, I just believe. She couldn't believe unless she saw something, unless she was proven that God is real almost. And she said, but I wanted to believe. And I think that there's a key factor whenever it comes to following God and getting your heart changed. You have to want it, and even if that's hard, even if you say, I want to get close to you, God, but it's hard for me to quit smoking, help me, and I believe that's what she would do. And then she would read the Bible every single day, try to get closer to him, but she was just, God, please show me yourself, like prove it to me, please. And she said that they went on a retreat at some time to the beach, and she's still wrestling with God over and over again. God, show me something. And she's on the beach, and she looks across, and there's this lady in a white dress just like walking across the beach, and she's just got something in her heart like, I'm going to be bold for the gospel today. I'm going to tell this lady about you, Jesus. And she goes to walk up to him, and the lady's drawing something in the sand, and she's just like, what? And keeps walking up to her, and as she gets closer, the lady starts to walk away, and she calls out to the lady. The lady doesn't answer, and she starts getting closer to her, closer, and she doesn't answer. And she eventually starts running after the lady because the lady is running away, and gets over this hill. The lady's gone, and she's like, well, what the heck? Well, I wonder what she was writing in the sand that was so important. She goes back, and she goes to see what the lady was writing in the sand, and it says, hi, Rhonda, Rhonda, spelled exactly like her name. I mean, there's multiple ways to spell Rhonda. It's spelled exactly like her name. But she gets on her knees, drops to her knees, and calls out to God. And she says, you're real. And from then on, she's been completely born again, sold out for Jesus, and she's involved with so much ministry. She's doing so much work, even work behind the scenes that people will never even see, and she just lives her life for Jesus daily. Never touched meth, never been on that stuff ever again. God completely changed her. And so what I would say is just like we were talking about earlier, the three things, community, reading the Bible, and prayer. And if you seek those three things, even if you're torn between still having the desires to go back to whatever you're addicted to, whatever it is, even the small things like we were talking about. But if you keep seeking those three things and you pray and you give your heart to God in prayer, he will make a way. Simple as that. Even if you have to say, God, I want to believe, but please show me, God. It'll happen. So I think that's just probably one of the best stories I've ever heard in my life. And
yeah. I mean, that's insane.
Some crazy characters.
Crazy
characters.
Golly, man. I mean, I will. You probably, if you're listening to this right now and you're addicted, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to find your name written in the sand, but I am going to tell you that those three things remain true in every single person's story that I've heard that has been freed from addiction. Those three things remain true: community, Bible, and prayer. If you are seeking after those things, if you are dwelling in those things, there's no possible way that sin is going to reign supreme. There's just no way. If you're talking to God every day, there's no way God is going to tell you to go back to that sin. If you're in the Bible every day, there's no way your Bible is going to tell you to go back in that sin. If you were in good community, there's no way that community is going to tell you to go back in that sin. If you are seeking those three things, it's gonna be so easy for you to get freed. I'm not going to say easy, but those three things are going to sure make it not impossible, which I'm sure it seems like in the time it is for you. Man, we got 1 minute left. I mean, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you, Blake, for coming on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. Yeah. I'm going to be thinking about that story for
Rhonda and Tallis. Miss Rhonda and Tallis.
Shout out Rhonda and Tallis Winter, bro. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Blake, so much for coming on, man. We love you. We thank you, and we'll see you guys next week. Unfortunately, Blake won't be on your screen, but we'll have him back. We'll try to get him back, maybe. We'll see. But, yeah, man, Blake, we love you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next week.